The dream of flying. Long ago, people looked at birds and dreamed of flying. They watched eagles soar high above the mountains. Some tried to fly with wings made of wood and cloth. One man jumped from a tower, but he fell. Others studied the wind and the sky. In a small town in America, two brothers lived. Their names were Wilbur and Orville Wright. They were not pilots, but they loved machines. They fixed bicycles in their shop every day. But their real dream was to make a flying machine. They read books about air and flight. They studied how birds moved their wings. They believed a machine could fly if it had balance and power. First, they built a glider, a plane with no engine. They tested it on a hill in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. The wind was strong and cold. Sometimes the glider flew a little. Sometimes it crashed into the sand. They took notes and made changes. Year after year they worked. Their neighbors thought they were crazy. But the brothers never gave up. One day they added a small engine to their plane. It was made of wood, wire, and fabric. They called it the Flyer. On December 17, 1903, the wind blew hard. Wilbur and Orville rolled the Flyer onto the sand. Orville lay on the plane and started the engine. The propellers spun fast. The Flyer moved forward faster and faster. Then it lifted into the air. It flew for 12 seconds. It only went 37 meters, but it was flying. People could not believe it. Later that day, Wilbur flew for 59 seconds. It was the first powered flight in history. But not everyone believed them. Newspapers said it was a trick. The government ignored them. The brothers kept improving their plane. They taught others to fly. In 1908, they gave a public flight in France. Crowds watched in silence. When Orville flew in circles, the crowds shouted and clapped. People finally understood humans could fly. Soon, more inventors built better planes. Airplanes helped in wars, carried mail, and later passengers. Wilbur died young, but Orville lived to see jets fly. He once said, "We were just two kids with a dream." Today, planes cross oceans and touch the sky. Every flight begins with that first 12 seconds. And it all started with looking at a bird. The fire that moved the world. James was a quiet boy who loved machines. He lived in a small village in Scotland. One rainy afternoon, he watched his mother boil water. The steam lifted the kettle lid with a soft click. "Why does it push up?" he asked. His mother smiled. "It's just hot air," she said. But James wasn't satisfied. He kept thinking about the power of steam. Years passed, and James grew into a curious man. He studied science and worked with tools. At the time, coal was needed for heat and factories. Miners dug deep under the ground. But water flooded the mines and made work dangerous. Horses and weak pumps could not remove it fast enough. James heard about the problem and wanted to help. He studied an old steam pump made by Thomas Newcomen. It worked, but it was slow and used too much fuel. James had an idea. He redesigned the engine to be more efficient. In 1769, he patented his improved steam engine. It used less coal and produced more power. Factory owners soon noticed. They used James's engine to run machines that made cloth. Before, factories were near rivers to use water power. Now, they could be built in cities with coal. Factories grew larger and needed more workers. People left farms and moved to towns. Life changed quickly. This time became known as the Industrial Revolution. But James Watt wasn't done. Others took his idea and made it go further. Richard Trevithick built a steam-powered carriage. It moved on wheels and carried people. Later, George Stephenson made the first public steam train. In 1830, the rocket pulled carriages between Liverpool and Manchester. People were amazed. Trains could travel faster than horses. Goods and passengers moved across countries. Cities grew even bigger. Steam engines also powered ships. Sailing ships depended on wind, which was slow and unpredictable. Steamships could travel on time any season. They carried goods across oceans. Trade grew between countries. Britain, the U.S., and others built more factories. The world became more connected. But there were problems too. Factories polluted the air with smoke. Workers, including children, worked long hours. The machines never stopped, just like the steam engines. James Watt, the man who started it all, did not see every change. He died in 1819, before trains and steamships were common. Yet his invention had already changed everything. Today, we use electricity and fuel, not steam. But every train, factory, and machine owes something to James. He showed the world how to turn heat into motion. A simple kettle lid, a curious boy, and a powerful idea. That's how one invention moved the world. The music in the silence. Ludwig von Beethoven was born in a small house in Germany. His father was a singer with a loud voice and a short temper. He believed Beethoven was a music genius like Mozart. Every night, he made Beethoven practice the piano. Even when Beethoven was tired or sad, the music had to go on. Sometimes he was pulled from bed in the dark to play. But Beethoven loved music, even when it hurt. At age 7, he gave his first public concert. People clapped and said he is a child star. By 12, he composed his first pieces. He dreamed of living in Vienna, the city of music. When he was 22, he moved to Vienna. There, he studied with great composers. He played the piano with fire and emotion. Audiences stood up and cheered. He became famous fast. People said his music was powerful and new. It spoke of struggle, hope, and joy. But a dark fear grew inside him. At 27, he began to lose his hearing. First, a ringing sound in his ears. Then, voices became soft. Music on the piano sounded far away. He kept it a secret from everyone. He wrote in a notebook, "I want to die." But then he wrote, "I cannot leave the world until I finish my art." He stopped going to parties. He avoided friends who could not understand. He used ear trumpets, but they helped little. He lived alone, walking in the quiet parks of Vienna. Yet he kept composing. He felt the music through the floor when he played. He placed his head on the piano to feel the vibrations. His mind held the notes even when his ears did not. In 1808, he wrote his Fifth Symphony. The famous opening, da-da-dum, short, strong, and bold. People said it was the sound of fate knocking at the door. He also wrote the Sixth Symphony, which sang of birds and rivers. One was stormy, one was peaceful, both from a silent world. In 1814, he conducted an orchestra for a performance. The music was loud, but he heard almost nothing. He turned too early, missed cues, and confused the players. A young musician gently turned him around when the piece ended. The audience wept as they saw him, unaware of their applause. He had to be turned to see the standing crowd. Later, he wrote his greatest work, the Ninth Symphony. It had 4 movements, and the last one included singers. The words came from a poem, "All men shall be brothers." It was a message of joy and unity. When it premiered in 1824, the audience clapped wildly. But Beethoven, standing at the podium, could not hear them. A singer took his arm and turned him slowly. He saw tears, waving hats, and hands clapping, and he cried too. He died in 1827 during a storm. Thunder crashed as rain fell on Vienna. Thousands came to his funeral. Today, his music is played all over the world. Even in silence, his voice still speaks.
Beethoven showed that art can grow in darkness and that the human spirit can sing even without sound.